Hi, welcome to Mother Murderer Podcaster, the podcast which celebrates the most outrageous and the best made for TV movies of the 80s and 90s.
I'm Katie Madonna Lee, a filmmaker.
And I'm Louis Jordan, a writer. It's 2023 and it's time for New Year's resolutions. So everyone's going on diets and getting gym memberships that will probably lapse by March. So we decided to cover the 1988 ABC made for TV movie Perfect People, starring the 40-time Vogue cover girl and our gap-toothed queen, Lauren Hutton, and hunky Perry King as a schlumpy middle-aged couple who decide to lose weight and get in shape until things get out of hand. And we we're going straight to New Year's and sort of skipping over Christmas because this is a rough December. Um, you know, uh, both Katie and I were sick, but I was sick basically the entire month. So, but we got off of it for a minute, but now we're back on it, and and this is one that you've been looking forward to for a while, right, Katie?
Yes, I love this movie. I found it on YouTube when I was sick. I was quarantining. I had COVID. I was sick and I watched it and I was like, oh my God, I love this movie. I love the message. I love Lauren Hutton. I've been a big fan of her since I saw her in Once Bitten when I was 4 years old. Jim Carrey's like
Mm,
big first comedy film.
yeah.
Loved her as the vampiress character. Yeah,
Yes.
great outfits.
Yes, always great outfits. Um, okay, so I will do our plot summary and then we can get into it with Lauren and Perry and all of that. Okay, so Perfect People is about Kenneth and Barbara, uh, Perry King and Lauren Hutton. And you'll notice it's, Kenneth and Barbara, grown up versions of Ken and Barbie. Um, they're a married couple in their 40s and they live in California and they work sort of nondescript jobs in real estate and investing. Um, they've raised, I think, two children. Yes, two. And they're about to send the second one off to college. So now that they're going to have an empty nest, they're starting to examine their lives more. And they used to be young and beautiful and romantic, but now, even though they clearly still love each other, they're overweight and frumpy and they live dull lives, just eating junk food and watching TV when they aren't working. So Barbara has a dream about their honeymoon and decides that she needs to make a big change and she wants romance back in their lives. So Ken takes her out to this local like club MTV style dance club. Um, and they just look so dumpy in comparison to everyone else there that she's mortified. And Ken keeps looking at the pretty women in the club and not at her. So she decides that they need to start a diet and exercise program. And they're planning this European vacation. So they agree to get in shape for the vacation. So pretty soon, Barbara is completely obsessed with health, food, and exercise. And Ken kind of goes along for the ride. Um, that he starts to see results, but she can't keep the weight off, and it's driving her crazy. And then finally, Barbara's hot divorcee coworker um, suggests that she get plastic surgery. So Barbara convinces Ken to let her spend the money for their European vacation on a full surgical makeover, and she suggests that he get hair replacement and lipo. So they spend months in bandages. And once they come out, they are Perry King and Lauren Hutton minus the fat suits and old age makeup and dumpy clothes. So they are beautiful. Um, but and Barbara starts dressing sort of like an 80s Barbie doll, and Ken is dressing like he's in Miami Vice, but that does not solve all their problems the way that they think it would. And on the night of their wedding anniversary, Ken they try having sex and Ken can't get it up. And because the problem is not how they look, it's the fact that they won't talk to each other and tell each other what they really want. So Ken and Barbara are arguing and they start sort of flirting with other people and getting attention from other men and women. Um, their daughter brings home a new boyfriend to the house and he starts flirting with Barbara. And then Barbara becomes convinced that Ken's having an affair with his work friend. So Ken and Barbara have a huge fight, and Barbara speeds off in her car. She's convinced that the marriage is over. And Ken goes after her and gets into a car accident. And then Barbara finally realizes that she's tried to fix her marriage without actually doing any of the things that you need to do to fix a marriage, like, communicate. So at the hospital, she and Ken reconcile and they decide they're going to start to actually talk to each other about what they want and sort of value themselves for more than the way that they look. And so they can't afford their European vacation anymore, but they take a trip to Mexico and it looks just like the memories of their honeymoon that they wanted to recapture. And it's very sweet and cute. So, um, and I really liked this movie. It has a really light, fun tone to it, but at the same time, I feel like it does have a good message, and the message it was very timely at the time, but I feel like it still applies in a lot of ways. So,
I think it's an excellent message, to tell you the truth, and that's one of the things I loved about it was, you know, everything currently streaming like Netflix and Hulu, it's very dark. Have you
mm-hmm,
noticed? Like, so if, I feel like if this got the 2023 or facelift
mm-hmm,
makeover, it would be like super dark. Like, you know, instead of having the light tone it has, it would have like this grittiness to it. And they're doing like Orange Theory, and they start a polyamorous relationship, and like they would just make it go super dark instead of focus keeping it small and honest, which is that Ken and Barbie both love each other
mm-hmm,
and they both care and they want to stay together. And I like that because one of the things they said in it, which I think is really interesting, is they said, we're not young anymore, meaning they're not 20,
mm-hmm.
but we're not old either,
Yeah,
you know? And that is a very true thing because most of your life, you're in that. You're like, you're not old, but you're not young. Like,
yeah. And I think
you
that
know,
that Barbara has this idea in her head that in order in order to have romance in your life, or in order to have fun, that you have to be young, and somehow she's not allowed to, as like, a woman in her 40s who has a little extra weight or something like that. She's not allowed to go on a fun vacation. There's something like there's something shameful she finds about that. Uh and it's like, just honey, just give yourself permission to have fun, you
yeah.
know.
And one of my favorite moments is in the oh, in the beginning, act one, where she's looking in the mirror and she's dancing around. She's wearing, it's so cute. Lauren Hutton, like, is so adorable in this when she's dancing in the mirror with her daughter's outfit, and then Perry King walks in on her and he's like, Barbara, and she's like, oh, it's just really cute because Perry's sort of like, oh, well, I'm happy with the way it is, like, and she's like embarrassed to be having fun and dancing. And it seems like when they go to the club, they come home and Perry's like, well, Ken is like, we can put on
Yeah.
records and dance here. And she's like, no.
Yeah,
she
there's
thinks
this
like she
shame.
has there's shame, and also there's this consumerist aspect to it
Yeah.
that is very 80s
Yes, yes,
because
yes.
I remember my grandparents who were this, the greatest generation, silent generation, they had no problem going to a square dance. They had no problem turning on music and dancing in the house.
Hmm.
So I was like, yeah, why don't you just do that in your house, instead of going out and paying admission, buying the outfit to be included in this thing? Why can't you imagine it for yourself? I think that's really interesting to me that
Yeah.
it's something that you have to go out and buy and have permission to have.
Yeah, and even when they're dieting and doing exercise, she insists that they go to health food stores and start having like wheatgrass and buying all these supplements, and then they go to the gym, but she gets insecure because Ken is looking at other women in the gym. So then she's like, I just bought this home gym thing and it'll pay for itself. And it's like each time that they make any sort of progress in this thing, it's always they have to like be buying more things and then buying plastic until they've completely spent their life savings on this thing. So yeah, there's definitely a big 80s consumerist element to it. So here I thought we could I'll give a little background on Miss Lauren Hutton, and we can sort of talk about her in the movie and her outfits and her characterization and all that. Because she's the star of this movie, definitely. Um, so Lauren Hutton, she was born in South Carolina, grew up in Florida. She started modeling in the late 60s, and she was told that she'd never make it big because of the gap between her front teeth, which later became her trademark. And in 1973, she signed a contract with Revlon that was at the time the biggest contract in the history of the modeling industry. And then during the 70s, she starred in movies like The Gambler with James Caan. She was in John Carpenter's TV movie, Someone's Watching Me. And then in the 80s, she was, of course, in American Gigolo, which is probably her best known film role with Richard Gere. She was in Once Bitten with Jim Carrey.
My favorite.
And she was also in Paper Dolls and Sins, those like TV miniseries, campy 80s, like glamorous women. And you can see why a project like this would have appealed to her, because she is not the regular sort of like LA actress or model type. In the year 2000, she survived a serious motorcycle crash. She's in the Women's Scuba Diver Hall of Fame. Um, she's traveled to all of these different places. She's very anti-plastic surgery. She's not getting injections. She's not getting any of that stuff. She seems very down to earth. Also, yeah, she's the woman. She's both the woman to appear on the most Vogue covers ever, and she's the oldest woman to appear on the cover of Vogue at age 74 back in
Woo!
2017. So she doesn't give a fuck about getting older. And
Sure.
and I think that I got the sense that she really enjoyed playing somebody frumpy and being able to play someone so unlike her image. I mean, did you get
Yeah.
that sense?
Oh, she was having a great time. Oh man, I really love the wigs. The way, like, you could tell she was having a good time with the physical, like, cuz like when she was eating, she took all those diet pills and then they go and have Sundays, and the way that her feet are hanging off the table, she was definitely showing her physical comedy capabilities, which I loved, which I thought was
Yeah.
really fun to watch.
Yeah, and she's got this wide mouth, and she sort of kept it kind of pursed the whole time. And it was this sort of like, and she was using it in this very comedic way. She was moving in sort of very awkward, and the way that she spoke too, it seemed like her southern side came out more. And you, I think that the makeup too, like her old age makeup was really good. And
Yes.
so I believed her as that character. It didn't really feel like, oh, Lauren Hutton is in makeup. I felt like she really embodied this sort of person who had just gone into like full frumpy momdom.
I honestly, when it started, I was like, wait a minute. I checked the year and I was like, 1988. This isn't that long after she did Once Bitten. She can't,
Yeah.
like, because I was like, was this made in the like 2000s? When was this made? And I checked and I was like, wow, she's really Nancy Reagan. She's like so Nancy Reagan in
With
the
these pussy
opening, you
bow
know?
like blouses and just like, yeah, everything's sort of like oversized, and she has great she has great dumpy outfits.
Oh, they're so good.
There's
This
because they're so
reminds me,
bad.
this is an Indiana Catholic cult dress.
I
I love it.
know. Um, she still looks, I mean, she still has that beautiful face. So you can see that she's someone who used to be, you know, who used to be beautiful until she sort of like let herself go. It's the same thing with like with Perry King,
Yeah.
that I think they did a really good job with his receding hairline wig.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I really couldn't clock that was, I don't know how they did that. Maybe did they like have him shave his head and put on like a lace front or something?
I think they might have, but this was 80s and they hadn't gotten that advanced with like aging makeup that well. I remember seeing like practical makeup like that was not like at the level True Detective is now where you're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Geez, that's makeup." Um yeah, they did a really good job. He probably did shave and then they went back because when it started I was like, "Wait a minute. I could not see the hunk at
Mm-hmm.
first. I was like, and he was really, I think he had fun with it too. Like almost like
Yeah.
when they were sitting there and she's like, all we do is go to work and watch TV. And he's like, well, that's what most people do. You know, it seems like he's like, oh, this sounds great. Like he almost like really was like, I really like this. Like he wasn't judging it. He was like, it would be kind of nice just to do this.
Yeah, yeah. And he had a very sort of dorky dad kind of thing. It helps that he's got a sort of dorky nasal voice that doesn't quite
Yeah.
match. Like it reminds me in a way, because he was in Andy Warhol's Bad. He played this part that was written for Joe D'Alessandro, and Joe D'Alessandro has a little bit of that same thing where he comes out and it's like, oh, like, beautiful, incredible body, and then he's like, hey, how you doing? I'm, and he's got this sort of like high, mumbly, you know, unglamorous voice that doesn't exactly match the package. And so there's a little bit of that with Perry King. And I liked that he just sort of leaned into that, even though you could still see the jaw. He has that Superman jaw. And then, oh my God, Lauren Hutton's wigs though, like those were wigs. Those were not fooling anybody.
No,
Those were
no. And
dead
that
animals on her head. But I think that Lauren Hutton, she wasn't as big an actress, as other people. I think, she has her iconic roles. Um, but I have to give her credit because she always had she always played, I think, a pretty specific type of role, which was like American Gigolo or Once Bitten, where she is this elegant, beautiful woman, you know, uh, has money and class, but kind of sexy. Then with this, it was just so completely away from her modeling image, from her on-screen image. And even when she gets glamorous, I thought I appreciated it that instead of going becoming the glamorous Lauren Hutton, she literally dresses up like a Barbie doll. She has these
Yeah.
wild outfits. It's not, and the outfits aren't necessarily playing to her strengths either. Like she looks a little out of place in them.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
with this like crimped hair and denim and neon, like that's not her thing. But you can totally see why someone who felt so unglamorous would like go to that extreme. Like
Yes.
in
Yes.
when they finally go out to the club for their anniversary and they're like, yeah, now we're look hot and we're going out to the club. She literally looks like Dolly Parton. Like the wig, the clothes, and she's got these shoes that are like it's like a snake wrapped around her leg.
Yeah, I
I
thought that was pretty cool. I was like, "Where's she getting these clothes?"
I know.
They're
Um
great. Come on.
and then of course there's the acid washed denim outfit.
That's my favorite outfit. I love it. I love that outfit. And I love that they shot a whole sequence, like a chase scene and her storming out and driving away in that dress cuz that was my favorite outfit.
Oh my god, it's amazing. And not just acid washed denim, but pink lipstick, like purple eyeshadow, white lace tights, and pink star earrings, like very
Yes,
gem in the holograms.
Yeah, Barbie and the Rockers.
Barbie and the Rockers, yeah.
Mhm.
And it also, I was like, this is very Terry from Wife Mother Murderer. Like
Yes.
Terry would love this outfit.
Terry would. Terry would. she'd rip, she'd snatch the wig off her.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then once we get to the end of the movie, Lauren, I think when Barbara's going to the hospital, uh, she's wearing this like striped shirt with a jacket and jeans,
Yeah.
and she's got like her real hair. At least I'm pretty sure because it's sort of like honey blonde colored or something. And I'm like, okay, that's our Lauren. That's how I imagine she is in life. Like dressed down, but like looks great, and but I I loved I loved that she was just willing to go like basically full Miss Piggy. She went full Miss Piggy, which
She
that was
did.
what in that scene where she's like sneaking and spying on her husband. It reminded me so much of Muppets Take Manhattan, where
Where
Piggy's
she's in
spying on
the
Kermit.
park and she's
Yes,
behind the tree.
yes. And then you just hear like,
Yes.
ah, bang,
And
bang,
and
bang.
and she did have Miss Piggy tantrums. Like
She did.
she did. She with the suitcase storming out and the car not starting and the throwing away the juicer and everything. She had so many tantrums.
Yeah, yeah, she did. Um, so that was I loved her in this. I think yeah, Perry King did a great job. Um, and we don't hear about him as much. And his background is interesting. I didn't realize it until I did a little research on him because he kind of looks like a himbo. But he's actually from like he's a full nepo baby. His family goes back to like the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and he's the grandson of Maxwell Perkins, who's probably the most famous book editor ever. He discovered and edited Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald and Tom Wolfe. And so
Okay.
he's from like a major family, and he went to prep school. He got a drama degree from Yale. He studied at Juilliard. So
Wow.
he's
Okay.
got
The
this like
lineage.
cred. Yeah, lineage and like acting cred. And I guess then he was in the running, like sort of up against Harrison Ford for the role of Han Solo in Star Wars. But it went to Harrison.
Well, okay. But Harrison was already in to see that's just like not right because it's almost like why are they going to bring Perry King in when they already know at that point wasn't he was already in Apocalypse Now. You know, he
Yeah,
was already
yeah.
in American Graffiti.
Well, Perry King had been in stuff too. He had been in Slaughterhouse Five and other movies and stuff. But yeah, if you go on YouTube, you can find like footage of him doing readings as Han Solo for the auditions. Um, but
Damn.
he was in a couple of notable movies, but he mostly worked in TV and in a lot of TV movies. He got like a Golden Globe nomination for a TV movie in 1984, and he was on this show Riptide. There was like a detective show. I guess that's what most people know him for. I know him for being in Andy Warhol's Bad. Um, but he's basically his thing was like that he's a hunk, but he can act. He was sort of like he
Yeah.
was like a hunky character actor almost.
I knew him from the TV movie Roxanne, the Pulitzer Prize, starring China Phillips.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you
China
mentioned that.
Phillips.
Yeah.
And he plays like this rich millionaire who marries the young woman and oh, it's crazy. Like he has her do a three-way with Courtney Cox. Like it's crazy. Like crazy. And then she divorces him and everyone in Beverly Hills blacklists her and she has to become an aerobics instructor and he comes to her class.
Ah,
He was
oh my
such a
god.
douchebag in that. He was such a douche. I saw that when I was like 11. That
He's
was
got
very
a
confusing.
he's got a little bit of a because his chin is almost too Superman-y, so he's got a little bit of a douchey thing to
He's got a
him.
nepo baby chin, like old money I was in the Mayflower chin.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that kind of chin. Not like
Um
a chin like handsome.
yeah, so um but although I have to say, uh, he keeps it's funny because he keeps being like just working out and clearly not knowing what he's doing and sweating like hell when they're running. They have endless montages, all these
They're funny.
workout montages that are
They're
so
funny.
great. All of them set to covers of huge pop songs too.
Yeah.
Like
Way You Make Me Feel by Michael Jackson.
yeah, yeah, the way you
Supermodel.
make me feel. Janet Jackson. There's Prince's You Got That Look.
Yeah.
There's Sparks. There's all these other like so that really kind of adds to just the fun of it. There's all these just like fun 80s montages, but where he's just like, oh, I'm trying to get in shape. I'm trying to get in shape. And then finally once he takes off his clothes when they're like, okay, this is our wedding anniversary night, I was like, oh, god damn. Like he looks amazing. Just in shorts, Perry King in shorts. I was like, oh my god. He looks like somebody who has been working out his entire life.
Well, yeah, he's got that, pilgrim money.
Yeah, and I love that he was wearing zebra print briefs. Yeah, I hmm?
Oh, I was going to say, tell your Lauren Hutton story.
Oh yeah, my Lauren Hutton story. Mm. Okay, so years ago, I was working at Newsweek, and they had this section where they would send someone to red carpet events, and they would interview celebrities about current events. And then I ended up getting that job. I think basically because I was the only one who could get RuPaul on the phone. Um, and so I don't remember exactly, but I think it was at Lincoln Center, and it might have been for like Sidney Poitier getting some kind of big award. But Lauren Hutton was there, and I was interviewing her on the red carpet, and she was beautiful and glamorous and really funny and nice. And then she pointed pointed to my face and she said, "I like your gap." And for a second, I didn't know what she meant, and I was like, "What?" And she said, the gap in your teeth, like mine. And I was like, oh, because, and I said to her, well, that's an honor because you invented the gap. So that's, I'm really honored. Thank you. Because she did.
Oh,
Before that, that's the sort of thing that people would get corrected, but
yeah.
she made it glamorous, she made it sexy, and she kind of paved the way for the Madonnas and all of those people who had the
Yeah.
little gap. Because I've got that little gap between, and I never wanted to get it fixed, but yeah, so that was you know that was a great moment, because it was the woman who invented the gap complimenting my tooth gap. um
I love that story. I remember after that happened and you told me about it, and I was like, I was like, did you ask her about Once Bitten? Did you ask her about that movie? Because that's like one of the greatest movies of all. Did you the dance sequence? And oh, she looks great. Like, I
but literally, it's like, it would be like Arnold Schwarzenegger telling you that you have great arms, or Jane Mansfield telling you that you have beautiful breasts, or something like that, and you'd be like, oh, thank you, because you invented that. uh, then, oh, I wanted to talk about Priscilla Barnes and David Leisure. Can you believe that's his name? As their respective sort of like co-worker friends, they're kind of bad influences.
oh yeah. Oh,
So Priscilla Barnes is like my favorite character in this. She's such a hoot. Do you remember her from Three's Company?
oh, she was my favorite. She was one of the replacements. She was the nurse. She was the nurse on Three's
Oh,
Company.
after they gave Suzanne Summers the heave ho, they had a new one that nobody seemed to really like right after Suzanne, and then I guess they brought in Priscilla Barnes after that.
Well, the other I think was supposed to be her cousin Tracy, and I don't mind
Hmm.
her. I didn't
Yeah,
mind any of them. They all were fun. But
yeah.
Priscilla Barnes was really really fun. She was a nurse. I remember that cuz I remember her uniform and her little name tag, and she always would make this face like every time. That was always her face. I'll never forget it because, like, Mr. Roper, there'd be a misunderstanding, and Mr.
Hmm.
Roper would be like, "Whoa," oh, and she'd be like, "Oh," best faces. Oh, Jack, that would always be Janet. Oh, Janet would always be, oh, what? And just Priscilla Barnes would be. "Hmm." She had the best. She had the best physicality with comedy
Yeah,
on that show. It was great.
and she has it here too, and she's just, I mean, she's fully embodying this, like, this sexy divorcee, and
Oh yeah.
just being like, you know the most effective diet that I ever had was divorce. I lost 150 pounds in one day. um, and just like try pushing like diet pills on Barbara, and like telling her to get plastic surgery, telling her to like flirt with guys to to make more sales, just basically being a bad influence but really fun.
Yeah. And they dress similar. That's what I love is also when Barbara starts dressing more like a Barbie doll, so does Priscilla Barnes. Like we already believe she's already like pretty fun, but her outfit's kind of there's that one scene when they're both using the copy machine and they have these like silk ridiculous like I could never wear that to an office. Like I
Oh
would be
yeah,
set home.
she's literally got like she's showing so much cleavage and complete bare shoulders, and it's practically a corset, and I'm like, how do you both of them, and everybody else is just sort of normal office people, and they're like these glamazon Barbies. But I love that. I love that. And then at Perry King's office, we've got David Leisure.
Oh my god, he is the reason why there's workplace sensitivity training. You got a problem?
Oh my God. He's so smarmy. He's just incredibly smarmy. He's like he's like somebody who would host Miss America or something.
He was always playing like these guest spots on Fox News show, like Fox Network shows when they were trying to get that network off the ground. And he would always play like these creepy dudes. Like I think was on an episode of Married with Children where he played a timeshare salesman or something, or
He was.
like there were all these like he always would play these like and I even remember seeing him in a personal injury lawyer ad where it's like, and I was like, I know that guy. That is not a real case. That is an, I know that guy.
That's so funny. Oh my God. David Leisure. Um, it, it just the most perfect name, the he's the epitome of sleaze. Um,
He's great. Great.
um, oh, and then talking about the supporting characters, I also have to say that I like how Margot, who's the
Yeah.
sort of the other woman, like the person who Ken maybe could have an affair with or is thinking about it, is portrayed as someone who's actually like really smart and self-possessed and totally onto Ken's bullshit. And
Yes.
like you know that even if he tried it with her, she wouldn't fuck him because she's like she sees how he'll like zone out while he's talking to her and start looking at other women, and then he'll be like, what were you talking about? And every time she'll be like, steamed vegetables.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how, she's when he's like, "Oh, so looks don't matter," and she's like, "No, I like being ugly." And he's like, "No, it's the person." And what another thing I really like about that exchange was when he I one of the things I really like about this movie in general is that they show how hair affects men, probably the way like weight affects women, where he thinks, oh, well, he has to get his hair plugged so he can keep his job. And the guy that's actually the big wig from the East Coast they're flying in is bald and overweight. And Margot's like, yeah, he's a great guy. He's got a great marriage. And Ken is like, what? But he's bald. That guy? What?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's thinking hair is the key to success, the way I
and
think women think being thin is.
and you can really see it because like the treatments that men take, to like the pills that you'll take to stop losing hair or to keep your hair, um one of them will just sometimes like completely fuck with your hormones, and some people it's fine, and other people it causes real like erectile dysfunction issues and all kinds of other issues. um but people will take it, and I'm like, you'd rather keep your hair so you can be seen as sexually desirable, but then you're actually not able to deliver once the
Well,
moment comes.
that goes back to what we discussed on one of our private phone conversations where we talked about the superhero, how they look super sexy, but they never actually are sexy. They never deliver
Yeah,
sex.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
I look great, but I'm almost asexual. Like, there's nothing
yeah.
I can give you. I just look like it.
And I think like bald guys can completely be hot. Like if somebody thinks that bald guys can't be like hot or masculine, there's so many.
Oh,
Look at
they are.
freaking Jason Statham or something like that.
I mean, there's a whole genre of films about a
Yeah,
bald guy who's hot and action, like The Expendables,
yeah,
Die Hard. Like, I mean, so it's been around for a long time. I never thought, oh, I never thought, oh, you're bald, you're gross. I never thought that. And so it
yeah.
was interesting to me when I was with one of the guys I dated. That was he had beautiful hair. He has beautiful hair. But he's totally obsessed with it falling out. And I was like,
Hmm.
well, my dermatologist says, you can just use Rogaine. And he like flipped out and I was like, whoa, 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 calm down. I didn't know I was triggering you. And I was like, you do realize like if you lose your hair, you still have like your character. And if your character before that is ugly, well, you're it's just like what are you masking? Are you using your hair to mask it with? You know, as someone who lost their eyebrows and lost a lot of my hair due to lupus and autoimmune illness, I dude, I went through a severe depression because I was like, people wouldn't say it like, why is your hair gone there? Why don't you have eyebrows? It's embarrassing. But at the same time, then you're just like, I'll draw them on, whatever,
And there's so
whatever.
many women who don't, or who don't have as much eyebrows as they want, or they pluck their eyebrows or whatever. I mean, like it's yeah, fuck it.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm still gonna have like, if I had my eyebrows that I had 10 years ago, I'd still be me. I'd still be depressed. I'd still have the issues I have. I would still be moody and, you know, picky and weird, and I'd still be the same. I wouldn't it wouldn't turn me into any different.
yeah, and that's the point of this movie.
So the other thing that I thought would be interesting that you had on the docket
Oh
was the
yeah.
fitness craze, the gym craze of the 80s.
Yeah, now that was interesting because so gyms were very much they were very much around previously, but they were sort of for pro and amateur athletes. And then I think in the 70s first of all, like jogging was sort of a craze in the 70s,
Yes.
and like late 70s everybody started jogging. And then you had movies like Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where suddenly bodybuilding was getting more mainstream. And then you had in the 80s, you had Jane Fonda and her aerobics. And then suddenly, like went full mainstream. And it was a thing that regular people went to. And it became huge business. And that hadn't happened previously. So this was like a new thing. This was like a huge fad that people were not used to. Um, and you can sort of see in the way that they present the gym, it's like going to this other place where people are wearing these tiny little shorts and these neon outfits, and there's something exotic about it. Just like when they're eating health food, they're eating like a big thing of wheatgrass or like an entire tub of plain yogurt,
That was funny.
because that now we don't, because in the 90s yogurt went like fully mainstream and became nothing new, but I think back in the 80s it was still like, ooh, yogurt, frozen yogurt, it was like kind of new and interesting. So I thought that was sort of interesting that this was really um addressing stuff that was sort of brand new in the culture at
Yeah.
the time.
So a lot a lot of that was also due to the fact that 80s boomers had a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And with that wealth uh was the how can I improve myself? They had more money and they decided not to get married because a lot of the gyms were an extension of the disco and the singles bar and the swinging club,
Yeah.
which had fallen out of fashion for many reasons. But the gym had replaced it. There's that movie Perfect with
Yes.
Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta, based on the Rolling Stone article about chasing Mr. Goodbody, about
Yeah, those
how
hip thrusts.
single. It's a great. I do love that movie. I don't care what anyone says.
Mm-hmm.
That movie is really fun. It's really
Yeah.
shows aerobics and oh, I love it. And also with that had been yoga had been coming, because the Beatles in the late 60s started going to India and
Oh
doing
yeah,
all
the
the
whole Maharishi stuff.
yeah, so that is a lot how that started. A lot of it started because of it started in the late like the 60s and things like that had been brewing for like the last 12 years when they started bubbling up. And with Jane Fonda, it was because she had the eating disorder and she needed to
Yeah.
stay fit. And she developed aerobics with one of her friends who didn't get the financial gain
Yeah.
that Jane got, which is it's well documented. There is a book. It's called Let's Get Physical, and it's a history of aerobics and women empowerment. It's a great book. It's an excellent
Oh,
book. But
that sounds
yeah, no.
fabulous.
So a lot of that had to do with just the the self improvement and the fact that people had money and they were single and they had the pill, things like
Hmm.
that had all impacted why people were going to the gym, because they could delay, they weren't living through the depression, they weren't living through World War II, and they had already lived through major social structures that had changed. So those all led them to the gym, which became both the church and both became the club, the
Yeah.
singles bar, all at once, because people were they were hooking up at these
Yeah. Yeah. That's where you could go
clubs.
and you would, you were going to meet like hot people there and presumably single and all of that stuff. And yeah, it was definitely the health food and the fitness craze of the 80s had a lot to do with the sort of economic boom of the 80s. And with boomers getting a little bit older, but being like, okay, no, we're not going to be like our parents and settle into middle age. We're going to be hot. So this movie was really sort of on trend with all of that. And in the same way, plastic surgery had really gone mainstream for the first time in the 80s. I think in people were doing it previously and they had like nose jobs and things like that in the 60s and 70s, but it was really in the 80s when you started seeing like women who had boob jobs and people
Yes.
talking about it, people talking, Joan Rivers getting plastic surgery and talking about her plastic surgery, and Cher, and facelifts, and that became part of like the cultural lexicon. And so that's another thing where it's like part of this whole sort of consumerist society and economic boom thing where it's like now you can buy the perfect body. and
Yes. Yes.
and so that it was tying right into that. And it's so funny because you would think that because this movie was so on trend at that time and addressing things that were so specific to that time that it would be dated, but that really hasn't changed. People now are obsessed with health food. They're obsessed with working out. And it's not even that you just have the option of getting plastic surgery, but that to get that Instagram model look, to get that Kardashian look, you have to have plastic surgery to get that look. It is a plastic surgery look. And so it's almost like de rigueur. If you want to be like a beautiful person, then you get work done. It's become so normalized that people don't even talk about it anymore.
It's
So
expected. People think I got work done because they say I look different. I'm like, yeah, because I grew up. I don't look like I'm 12 anymore. I
hmm.
grew up. It's
Yeah.
weird. It's interesting that you said that, the perfect look, because Monty, who is the boyfriend of their daughter,
Hmm.
he is almost like, "Oh, I think it's great that your mom got plastic surgery. She wants to be perfect. She wants to look this way." And and it's interesting because Priscilla Barnes' character says, for some reason, when I tell men that it's all fake, a lot of them are out the door. So it's this
Hmm.
interesting double, like, weird they bring it all into the movie, all these topical things, because yeah, there are some men, it's like, oh, I that are like, oh, I want it to be real because I want to think like I can attract this genetic perfection myself. And then there's this other type, and we've seen it, where men are like in LA. They're like, "Oh, I'll pay for your nose job and I'll pay for your boobs if you get to look this way," and
Yeah.
fetishizing women's bodies and fetishizing plastic surgery and things like that. So they showed all that in different little ways, but I don't think society has changed with that relationship. I think it's been hyperbolic. It's even more bananas. And the thing about it is like there's less access for the middle class to have it because I remember growing up there was a gym called Fitness USA that had everything. It was a great gym. It
Hmm.
had weights, it had group fitness, it had a pool, it had a spa, it had a hot tub, it had a steam room, it had a sauna. Now those are gone and now it's Planet Fitness, which
Hmm.
is you know just weights, and then you can do like a circuit class, but it's not the same. It's not aerobics, it's not yoga. Now, if
Hmm.
you want to go to yoga class, you join a boutique yoga studio where it's like
Yes.
$150 a month if you're lucky, and $30 a class, blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you want to take a cardio class, you join a cardio boutique place, but then where are you going to get your weights? So it's this constant like ridiculous. Like I miss the 80s gyms actually, where you had a pool, you had a steam room, you had a this and that, you had it all in one instead of like we just go here for this machine. Because for me growing up, going to the gym saved me. My aerobics teacher that I was friends with when I was 10 was like amazing. And I loved her. I looked up to her. Jane Fonda's like her aerobics tape transformed my life. It got me through so many negative things. And having that community of women is very empowering. And that's something we've lost. And in that book, Let's Get Physical, it's interesting because she talks about that how women and in the show Physical, the
Hmm.
show, they're finally
Oh yeah.
pregnant, where it's the one thing that women have for themselves, and that's why it was so important in the 80s. And how when you are up there you're taking control of your body, the one thing that women don't get to have control of, because society's
Yeah.
like, you need to look this way, you need to do this, why are you eating that, wait, what are you wearing now? That's one thing men don't understand is like, yeah, women, like, I have to be so neurotic about what I wear because this woman is going to think this and then this guy's going to think that. And it's like, our bodies are literally out of our hands all the time. We have no control over how they're perceived, we have no control over it. And uh, that's the one thing I loved about aerobics classes with all women is you would go and it was just like you could be feminine, you could be women, and it was like all this unison movement, and we were all together and just not thinking, just doing, not fussing and not judging, and it was great. And I miss that, and I think that's really important for women to have. And I don't like that it's a luxury instead of something that everybody should be able to access. There should be just like free group fitness classes. There should be. I wish.
Yeah, listen, I feel that way too about gyms. I mean, I hadn't gone to gyms until, the last couple of years, but I've gotten really into it. But I'll see like the gym here made me think of that Share commercial, the
Oh,
which is one of the great New
Bally's.
Year's. Yeah, the Bally's Shares. If you haven't seen it, go on YouTube and look up like Shares Bally's gym commercial where she's like, you know, you put on weight during the holidays, even your ankles got fat, but now you're going to get tough. And
Oh,
just
so good.
everyone, the way that it's lit is such fun 80s. She goes into the gym with like a full wig and this fabulous outfit. Everyone
Yeah.
is wearing these fun neon outfits, and it just makes the gym look like the most fun place in the whole world. And I'm like, that's the gym that I want. That's my ideal gym,
Yes.
is that shared gym commercial gym. I want to
Isn't
go
that
there.
what Isn't that okay? Is it me or isn't that what's that gym that's like lit like a club?
David
One in New York
Barton.
City.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they don't
is
have the
that
David Barton anymore. Um but Yeah, yeah, that used to be a thing, and they would have DJs there, and there was, it was super gay, and they have those places, like people. Um, there's one called Temple that's very much that way,
Hmm.
but it's a little bit more like Temple feels very upper middle class. I've gone there on like a pass, and there's Equinox. There's a real thing, especially with gays in New York, where it's like, what gym do you go to? Oh, well, I go to Equinox, and then that says something
Hmm.
about you. Or I go to
I
this.
know. I know
Yeah,
Equinox people. I don't like status. I don't like status. I'm very anti-consumerist. Let me know
yeah,
when the app
yeah,
says otherwise. And
yeah,
I'm like, why buy it? You don't need, if you don't need it to buy it, don't. Like, you can get so many things off YouTube, or I understand there's sometimes there isn't, and sometimes you need the push, but I don't know. I find a lot of things you don't always need, and then you get guilted into returning, and I don't like that.
yeah, yeah. And I do think, in the way that this still applies, I think that now we're still judging ourselves very harshly, and I try not to follow too many fitness influencers on Instagram because there are all of these guys who are super buff and they're on steroids, and they swear that they're not on steroids, but then it's like Liver King, who got outed for being on like $40,000 of steroids every month, when he swore up and down that it was just his liver pills that made his body like that. And you can look like this too if you buy my liver pills. Uh, and I'm like, that stuff doesn't motivate me. That stuff makes me feel like I'm never good enough. And so I try not to engage with that, but just sort of focus on my own goals, and how when I feel like I look good, and to not have to try to push myself to the point where, because if you just go by what you see online, you have the idea that you can go year round having six-pack abs, and that's normal, and it's like, no, getting down to 10% body fat is very difficult. And when the influencers actually talk about it, they're like, yeah, I feel terrible, I'm tired all the time, like this is not sustainable the way that I look right now. But they're selling you this fantasy in order to sell you products so much. So you really do have to sort of take that step back and be like, am I doing myself a service here, or am I just trying to attain this like impossible perfection and making myself miserable in the process?
Well,
um
yeah, I think that's a problem. That's why I'm so anti-consumerist, is it feeds lies and ideas to people. One thing I liked about Perfect People is it showed at the end where Perry King gets in this horrible accident, and they come to him and they say, okay, plastic surgery is needed for reconstructive purposes. The
mhm.
original need of plastic surgery was for reconstruction, for
Yeah.
fire, for horrible
Mhm.
accidents. And he's like, and the plastic surgeon's like, we can do this to you, and he's like, I want my old face. But it's interesting to me because it's like plastic surgery was really meant to be for medical purposes, in the sense of the fact, like, you've been in a horrible accident,
And then
we
we
need
need
to
to
make you
rebuild
feel
you. Yeah.
feel okay about yourself, so you have function, you know whereas the consumerist part is like, get all the stuff you don't need because it shows wealth, get
Mhm.
all these unnecessary enhancements because it shows how much money you have, and how you can do it, and it just sends a wrong message. It also is just like a waste of money, like, I mean, why? I don't know.
Yeah, and so that's why I like that it ends with, even though they are their hot selves at the end still, um they're no longer trying to be an ideal that they are not, and they're acting like their old selves, and you can see them, uh, they're they've become comfortable in their own skin again, and so I like that. I think that's a good message, and it sort of dovetails into the monologue, the dialogue
Yeah.
that we picked out. Um,
Okay, you're the mother, I'm the daughter.
Yeah, okay, yeah. This is how we usually do it. So this is our Mary Catherine Gallagher monologue, which is named after the character that Molly Shannon did on SNL in the 90s, who is this Catholic schoolgirl who was obsessed with TV movies and obsessed with being a star and would always do monologues from TV movies in order to express her feelings. And so each time that we cover a movie, we look and see what monologue would Mary Catherine Gallagher choose from this. And so the one that we found, um, it's at the climax of the film. It's at the climax of the film. So Barbara and Ken have just gotten into a huge fight. Ken got into a car accident going after her. He's in the hospital. Barbara is at home with her daughter, Irene. And Barbara looks at a picture of her and Ken as their old selves, and she's just overcome with regret. And she starts frantically grabbing health food from the kitchen and throwing it in the trash. And then she lunges for the juicer, and her daughter Irene grabs her. So you're Irene,
Mom,
I'm Barbara. Okay.
mom, mom, stop.
I hate these things. I hate them all. They've ruined my life.
They haven't ruined your life. Look, this was all great when you guys started, but then you got obsessed with it, with the diet and then the surgery. When you tried to be perfect, that's when it all went crazy. You can't blame the machines for it, or the diet, or the doctors. They didn't make you do it. It isn't their fault.
It's not my fault your dad's having an affair either.
How do you know he's having an affair? And if he is, he needs you, Mom. He loves you.
I love him too.
There was never anything wrong with the way you looked.
Well, there certainly wasn't anything wrong with the way you looked, no matter what that old Monty said.
Well, he's a jerk anyway. The sooner I found out, the better.
Thank you. Irene and Barbara hug. Scene. Thank you. That was great.
It was
It was,
fun.
yeah, and it really, that's the theme of the movie. That's
Yes.
the statement right there.
And I love that actress. She's in so many TV movies, like especially the one about the supermodel goes to New York and gets cut. It's a really good one. And Monty, what I'd like to add, was
Uh-huh.
a famous character on Melrose Place. He was like a second
Oh.
season character.
Oh, okay. I
He
didn't
was like
realize.
his hair gets darker, so it's weird because he I think he looks hotter with the sandy brown, but on Melrose Place he dyes his hair is like black.
Mm.
He's like one of the hot guys. I don't know. He's like super hot and he's always got a smirk. He's always like
Yeah. Yeah, he's got that hot, jerk thing.
he's not Grant Show. I had the hot. I was like, oh, Grant Show, and Andrew too. I was all into him during the big like love triangle. Amanda, Heather Locklear. I shouldn't
All
have quit
right.
basketball to watch that show. I wish I didn't. I really wish I stayed. I wish I didn't get obsessed with that stupid love triangle. Fuck, it was not worth it. I didn't know they were going to have reruns. I didn't know it was going to be on streaming platforms. I would have stayed with basketball.
My God. All
I would
right.
have been the next Larry Bird.
Okay, Katie Bird. I think that we've got it. So, thanks everybody for listening or watching, and rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, where you can listen to the rest of our episodes, or on YouTube, where we have video versions of our podcasts, and also lots of cool TV movies and old commercials and stuff that Katie has found and uploaded. Um, and then you can also follow us on Instagram or TikTok, at Mother Murderer Podcaster, where Katie will post clips from the movies that we cover or just other cool stuff.
And we're on Twitter.
And Twitter, yes, and Twitter at Mother Murderer
I don't even know
Podcaster also.
what Twitter is.
Yeah,
Honestly,
yeah,
I don't know.
whatever Twitter is now.
I don't know, but we're there. I post links. That's it.
Yeah.
I get out.
Yeah, amongst all of the angry people in porn, we're there
It really
somewhere.
reminds me of a townie bar. Like if Cheers in South Bend, Indiana could be a social media platform, it would literally be Twitter. Literally.
Yep, messy. It's messy. Um, all right. Thank you, everybody,
Signing
and
off.
we'll see you next time. Bye.